This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Thanks for joining. I'm super excited to have everybody with us today. We have a great lineup of speakers who are excited to share with you information to help support your teams and the great work that you're doing. My name is Kimberly Cook. I'll be your moderator today. I'm the Northern California Business Development Manager for Agromin Soil Products. And Cecilia Rios is our host. She's a supervising environmental services specialist with the city of San Jose. She'll be doing all the behind-the-scenes technical work and keeping us afloat and running along smoothly. Today's webinar session is about public outreach. It's session 2 of a 13-part webinar series brought to you for free by the SWANA Gold Rush chapter here in Northern California. Our webinar series occurs once a month on a Friday from noon to 1 p.m. Pacific time. These webinars are free for all members and non-members, so please let your friends and colleagues know and share the series with them so they can join us as well. Check out our SWANA Gold Rush chapter website on the events page to learn more about the webinar series. You can register for upcoming sessions here, and then we'll also post the links for all the previous sessions so you can view those. And then you can also learn about the great opportunities to sponsor our series as well. If you're not currently receiving the webinar announcements from the emails and you'd like to do so and get plugged in, send us an email at swanagoldrush@gmail.com. And also anything else that's on your mind. Let us know how we did on this webinar or other webinars, or anything you'd like to see for the future. You can email us again at swanagoldrush@gmail.com. This webinar series is only possible with the dedication and hard work of our SWANA webinar team members. They include Ruth Abbey of Abbey & Associates, Tim Ridley of HDR Engineers, Christine Wolf of Recology, and of course, our very own host, Cecilia Rios. If you have a SWANA certification that you need to maintain, and if you're registered for this webinar, you'll automatically receive a continuing education unit, also known as a CEU. SWANA provides certification courses in landfill operations, composting operations, household hazardous waste, zero waste, and more. So I definitely encourage anyone to check out SWANA's website to learn more about the certification courses and get plugged in. SWANA does require that those who have certified through one of our courses obtain 30 CEUs across 3 years in order to maintain certification. Each of the webinars in the series that you attend, you'll earn 1 CEU. So if you attend all 13, you'll get 13 CEUs. This webinar series is also only possible with sponsorships from viewers like you. Sponsorship funds are critically needed to support the legislative task force, which lobbies on behalf of the SWANA members' interests. For a $1,500 sponsorship, your company will be highlighted as a premier sponsor for an individual webinar, and you'll also receive a large company logo that will be included in all webinar marketing emails, as well as on the SWANA Gold Rush webinar series page. Check out our website to learn more about ways to sponsor. You can also contact Christine Wolf at Recology to find out more information. So by this point, we've all used a whole variety of web-based platforms like Zoom or free conference call for these sorts of meetings and webinars. This platform that we're using for the webinar series is GoToMeeting. So there's 2 things specifically I'd like to show you about this platform that will improve your viewing and participation experience. So with that, if you look at the screen here, and now this is based on a desktop view, so it may be different on your phone, hopefully close enough. So at the top center of your screen, you'll see something called View Who's Talking. To the right of that, there's 2 arrows, and if you click on that, it'll give you the option to switch to the view that says Hide Everybody. That may be preferable for this sort of viewing, because if you do hide everyone, then you won't see the webcams of who's speaking. You'll just purely see the presenter's PowerPoint, which will be a lot easier to view. And next is the chat function. So I encourage everyone to send comments, questions. You can do that here. If you look on the right side of your screen, at the top, there's a little bubble that I have pictured here in the circle. So if you click on that bubble, that'll bring you to the chat page. And then at the bottom, I have another circle. It'll immediately put you on chatting, sending a message that everyone can view. In the case that you don't want it to have everyone view it, or if you want to send a question just to the organizers, you can click, again, the double arrows, and that'll give you the option to send to the organizers, and those messages will come to Cecilia and I. So whatever works for you is great for us. For the attendees, please make sure that your mic is muted at all times and that your webcam is turned off. Our speakers today are Emily Coven, the founder of Recyclist, Jessica Shrout, owner of Circle 3 Branding, and Linnea Whitney Skierski, who works in business development at Recyclist. After each presenter has finished speaking, I'll address several questions to them from our chat box, depending on the time that we have available. If you do post a question in the chat box, if you want it addressed to a specific speaker, please clarify that, so then we'll know who to address the questions to. And without further ado, Emily Coven is the first speaker for today. She's the founder of Recyclist, a software company dedicated to creating simple, elegant technology solutions to complex environmental challenges. After 15 years in the technology sector, Emily happened upon the waste industry and has never looked back. She is continually awed by the determination and dedication of the recycling coordinators and program managers that Recyclist works with at the cities, counties, and haulers, covering nearly 20% of the California population. Emily lives in Truckee, where she spends her free time skiing, biking, and paddling with her family in the environment that the Recyclist team is devoted to protected. Emily, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kimberly. So are you passing it to me? Is that how this is working?
Yes.
Nothing's come yet, so.
Yes.
Oh, here we go. Great.
You have it okay? You have it okay?
Yep, I believe this is gonna work. Oops, looks like everybody's frozen to me. Waiting for people to see your screen. There we go.
I can see it.
Here we go. Oh, people only see your paused app, sorry. I was trying to do this in PowerPoint based on what we tried the other day, but it doesn't seem to be any different, so.
Sure.
Okay, I'm just gonna go like this because I'm not quite sure how to get it to not show the things on the side, even in PowerPoint.
Okay, yeah, no, it looks great. We can see it.
Okay, great. Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Kimberly. And yeah, thank you for the intro, Kimberly. And you know, what's so funny is that in your intro, you said viewers like you, because I actually used to work in public media. I did like all the online websites and everything for PBS and NBR for years. So I'm very used to speaking to viewers like you, but it's nice to be doing it in the waste and recycling world. So anyways, like Kimberly said, I'm the founder of Recyclist, and my colleague Linnea will be presenting as well today. So for those of you who are not familiar with us and who we do or what we do, we're a software company. We're based in Truckee. We are technically in California, but we can basically like throw a stone at Nevada from here. And we, as Kimberly mentioned, we create simple, elegant technology solutions to complex environmental challenges. Certainly one of the more complex challenges anybody's facing out there, and definitely the people on this webinar, is what to do with all of that waste out there and how to reduce it and divert it from landfill. So Recyclist is a triple bottom line company, which means that we put an equal emphasis on people, profit, and the planet. So on the people side, that means that it's super important to us that we have happy customers and also happy employees working here. On the profit side, of course, we have to be financially sustainable. And I want to mention real quickly the planet side. is super important to us. We have a mission at Recyclist that it's really important to us that our work have a positive impact on the environment. At the same time, we acknowledge that we're not the ones out there doing the hard work, getting waste actually physically diverted from landfills. That's, mostly I'm guessing you all on this webinar, you're the ones who are the real heroes out there doing the hard work. But we really see our role as building tools that make you as efficient and effective as possible at your jobs, and that we sort of, by association, basically have a really positive effect. So thanks for all the work that you guys all do. We work in two main areas at Recyclist. One is on the residential side and one is on commercial multifamily. Linnea will be talking more about the public outreach that we facilitate on the residential side and some of the results we've seen from there. And I'll be talking more on the commercial and multifamily side. The data that I'll be presenting today comes from the Recyclist Program Tracker, which is a software platform used by cities, counties, waste management authorities, private haulers throughout the state of California to track their commercial and multifamily solid waste recycling organics programs. I'd like to say that we'll be presenting on big data. You hear a lot about big data in the media. I think it would be a little grandiose of us at this point. We do have quite a bit of data. We have, I call it medium data. Our products are used in about 20% of, if you take the population of California, about 20% of them are reached by our products, so just over 8 million people. So it is quite a fair amount of data that we do have to mine from on both sides of what we do. So I want to talk about outreach, but before I can talk about outreach, I really need to talk about sort of what I see as the sort of foundation of any good commercial outreach program, which is having a good list, database basically, of all of the commercial and multifamily generators that you may or may not be performing outreach to. And I want to tell you a little bit of the history of the Recyclist Program Trackers. We started this a number of years ago, and we knew we needed a list of all the businesses. And we tried a bunch of different things. We tried those lists that you can buy, commercially available lists of businesses, like you could get from like Info USA or Dun & Bradstreet or companies like that. We tried lists that came from the EDD. We tried lists that came from like city, business licensing databases. And no matter what we tried, we always sort of hit a wall where it was like, okay, we could get some information and some NICS codes and some employee numbers, and we could run that against CalRecycle tools, and we could get a bunch of estimates. But at the end of the day, what everybody really needs to know is who's out there generating the waste and how much are they generating and what services do they have and what services do they not have. All of that information lives really only with one entity, which is whoever's hauling the waste. So we've really moved to where we only work, pretty much all of our customers now have customer lists from their haulers. Some of our customers are haulers, and so they have the list. Some of them are cities where that information is readily available. Some of our customers are cities where it's an open market, it's trickier, but they're making it work. Some people still struggle getting that data. For what it's worth, my understanding is that the SB 1383 model ordinances that CalRecycle will be releasing soon do include language that will help cities to gain access to these lists, because for all intents and purposes, you need them to comply with SB 1383. And so hopefully those that don't have them will be getting access to them soon. So what do we do when we get these lists? They're usually really difficult to deal with because they are big Excel spreadsheets usually, and they look like this. You can't look at this and know what in the world's going on, right? I mean, you have multiple rows for, a different row for every bin, sometimes a different row for every day of the week that's serviced, sometimes different account numbers for different services, sometimes different locations on the same account number. It's really hard to just look at a hauler's data dump and say, oh, now I know what's going on in my city. So that's a big part of what we do at Recyclist. We'll take data that looks like this and turn it into data that looks like that. So now I can look and see, aha, at this location, they've got 24 cubic yards of garbage every week, but they don't have any recycling organics. Now we've got a problem, and I can see exactly what those services are. I wish I could tell you could wave a magic wand and make this happen. This isn't easy, but it is humanly possible. That's the good news. With proper database engineering, this can be done. This allows us to then fill our database with lists of all of the generators and all of their service levels. Once we know their service levels, we know who's covered under the different regulations, and as well as who's compliant with the different regulations. then leads us to be able to track compliance in terms of, now I can see who's compliant and who's not and how that's trending. To bring this back around to outreach, one thing that, if there's one thing you get from today, it's that you can use data to target your outreach. So if I need to target outreach at my non-compliant customers, I want to look at this little slice here. This red slice of the pie is my non-compliant generators, right? So if I'm going to do any effort, I want to go target it towards those. To zoom back out here for just a minute, I want to talk about sort of aggregate numbers. We ran these numbers a while ago, and we just reran them recently based on 70,000 commercial and multifamily generators who have their data on their service levels across California. And they might need to mute their okay, I'm unmuted. Okay. Sorry, that was like a little bit thrown off by hearing that conversation. Okay, so what was I saying? Oh, so I wanted to zoom back out to sort of the big picture on outreach and who you need to target in the first place for different regulations. Based on this aggregate data, basically AB 341 and 1826, you're both hovering around half of the commercial multifamily properties within your jurisdiction. When you get to 1383, it's a big change. It's half again as many based on the numbers that we produced. Of course, this may be different where you work or where you're running a program, but this is a net aggregate across a lot of different cities. So the big take-home message from this is whatever level of outreach you're performing now, you're going to have to do more in the future just based on these sheer numbers. How can you go about doing that? So I want to show you another thing where we aggregated some data and looked at basically we took all of the generators and based on the total solid waste that they generated based on their service levels, and we split them into tenths, so deciles, so the top 10%, the next 10%, the next 10%, and we looked at how much waste were each of those deciles generating. And what I think is really interesting here is that you can see that this top 10% of generators are generating nearly half of all of the waste. Is this going to be true in your city? Maybe not, but it's some sort of trend like this is going to be there. So if you have limited time and limited resource to conduct outreach to all of your commercial generators, rather than sending 100% of them all the exact same flyer, you're going to get far better results to do targeted outreach at this top 10%, because right away, if you can get all those top 10% of those generators playing the game, properly participating in your program, you're going to divert 50% of your target materials. If you have a little bit more time and resources, do your top 30%. That's going to get you 3/4 of the way to your goal. So really, really effective to use data to target your big generators. What does these outreach activities look like for our customers? We see by far the most site visits. This data is taken from the last 6 months, and I think it's skewed because of the COVID-19 crisis. There's a lot fewer site visits in recent months, more emails and phone calls, but typically tons of site visits, a lot of emails and phone calls as well. And so what that looks like for us is, when our customers are going out and doing site visits, they're taking, photos of contamination. It can be really useful to send back to the people that you're talking to. We can also observe things like, oh, it looks from the data like you're not recycling, but actually you've got a shared bin, or actually you're self-hauling. So ways to kind of track what they're actually doing. Our customers do a lot of field audits as well that they find really, really helpful. So looking at fullness of recycling bins and compost bins, seeing the composition of different bins. And they also do a ton of right sizing estimates or service proposals where they go out and talk to customers. This is especially popular as cities are rolling out new organics programs and going out and saying, okay, here's your current services. Let's look at what it would happen if you right-sized and added food waste or added organics or added recycling. Here's different scenarios. Hopefully it saves you money. So we have on our platform, they can generate things like this. And sometimes this happens by the hundreds or the thousands in a city to really get those programs moving. So the second to last slide I want to show you here is some results that we see from our customers conducting outreach. So basically we took a handful of cities that we work with and we plotted their level of effort on the x-axis here, so how many outreach activities they had logged in their program tracker. And then on the y-axis here is what percentage of their commercial and multifamily generators are compliant with 341 and 1826. And while this is not a total straight line, there's no question there is a trend, right? Less activity, lower compliance, higher activity, higher compliance. And of course, we know compliance means diversion of recycling and organics from landfill. So these outreach activities lead very much directly to the kind of environmental impact that we're all looking for. Final note on outreach tracking, outreach to commercial entities. Not surprisingly, 1383, it's going to be a big deal with 1383. So this here is a screenshot of the dashboard we're building out for the Recyclist program tracker for 1383, which is going to encompass everything a jurisdiction has to track for 1383. But I've highlighted in here in yellow the education and outreach component. The regulations, at least as they are currently drafted, do stipulate that all jurisdictions do have to keep a complete record of every direct contact they have with any commercial or multifamily generator around 1383 regulations. So in some way, shape, or form, you're going to have to track this all more than you may currently be doing. But hopefully when you do track it, you see the kind of results that our customers see, where you also have great outcomes and your program works better and diverts more from landfill. So I could go on and on about this all day, but I know we're short on time. So here's my contact information. Here's Linnea's contact information. I think we have time for a little bit of questions, but you can always reach out to us directly. And if you want to know more on how we might, be able to customize what we do for your jurisdiction, we're happy to talk to you about that.
Awesome, Emily, thank you. And if you want to pass the presenter over to Jessica, we're going to go ahead and move into her, and then we'll collect some questions and cycle back around here in a bit.
Okay, great.
So Jessica Shrout is the owner of Circle 3 Branding, a marketing agency dedicated to the waste and recycling industry. Her passion grew from a frustration that no outside agency seemed to understand the needs of the waste world, and so it became a mission to provide quality marketing services from someone who understands what you're talking about. Jessica's work in marketing and brand development have won first place awards at the national level in 2018 and in 2019. She is also a columnist on marketing strategy for the industry, and her articles can be found in Waste Advantage magazine. Jessica, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here and talk to people who are interested in improving their marketing to get more compliance when it comes to recycling and really work with people to understand the environmental aspect of what we're dealing with here. So the common refrain that I hear from a lot of people that I work with is, no one understands us, even though the things we do seem pretty simple and straightforward for us. So why is it so hard to change behaviors, especially when it comes to recycling or composting or whatever it is that you're doing that's important to you right now? We all feel universally misunderstood, even though this stuff is kind of really simple to us. I mean, today I'm preaching to the choir. You are the one audience that understands exactly what we're talking about. The problem is we're doing such important work, and this industry deserves to be understood. So to that end, we want to use our marketing and communication skills to reduce these problems, avoid increased costs, educate our customers or whoever it is that we're working with, and become the only relevant source for information. That way, when people do have a question about something, they're going to you and not the internet or whatever source that they're hearing from these days. So why is it so hard to communicate effectively? Well, there's a lot of intricacies that go on behind the scenes, and people don't often understand how their actions have a direct impact, whether it's intentional or not, on budgets or the choices that a community makes, the environment, and most importantly, their own wallets. Well, I've noticed 4 main problems to why we have this communication challenge. It's usually either a lack of awareness, they're just totally not understanding what it is you're trying to accomplish, or they're aware, but there's an incorrect application of your guidelines. Like, let's say somebody has a mindset of, well, my single stream recycling program accepts plastic and metal and glass, so I can definitely recycle this strand of Christmas lights, right? Wrong. The third option is they might be aware, but they simply don't care. The mentality being, well, I'm paying you guys to sort through all this junk, so this is your problem. And last, it might be a bad source, such as they heard plastic bags can be recycled, so let's go ahead and put it in my single stream recycling cart. And we all know how much of a problem that is. And you might kind of think, well, Jessica, we talk about this all the time. Hey, I do too. The problem is, if you think you're an excellent communicator, you probably aren't. And that's okay. The vast majority of us, we're just not that good at it. We just have to adjust for it. We tend to unconsciously surround ourselves with people who speak the same language as us. That's how I stay in business. Going outside your group, that's where you run into problems. So you going outside and speaking to your customers versus you speaking to the people that you're working with in-house, totally different languages spoken. And we need something that bridges the gap. Let me give you an example. Some of you may have been involved in theater growing up, or maybe now it's something you do. They've got their own language. These words might mean something to you, like as a civilian, but they mean something completely different to people in the theatrical world. Every industry has a language, and we know that we've got one too. If this looks like Greek to you, let's look at another industry-specific language. So to us, these are simple terms. To the average person, though, this is a little mysterious. You know, what is MRF? And, you know, what is this compliance that I hear people talking about in the news? Well, it's truly complex if you're not already in it. So in the industry, we get a little bogged down when it comes to wanting to talk about these problems, because we go the route of, well, it's big, it's complex, it's scary, let's kind of minimize what we're talking about. That way we don't confuse them too much. So programs tend to err on the side of less is more. Here's the problem. If you're not speaking about it, who's speaking for you? So I want to take a look at one trusted source who is causing problems for recycling programs nationwide. And this one might come as a surprise for you. Trevor Noah. He's from The Daily Show, and he is watched by millions of viewers. And he did a 10-minute segment outlining current issues in recycling, like problems with contamination and exporting those commodities. I was so excited to see this. I was like, great. Finally, somebody who's got a broad audience is going to talk about the real problems. Until he ended his segment by telling viewers that they were recycling incorrectly by leaving the cap and ring on their plastic bottles, and that if they were doing that, their plastic bottles were getting thrown away. And I was so devastated by this. It left the audience confused because it contradicted what their local programs had been telling them, and they became suspicious that now all of the recyclables were just being sent to the landfill. So they lost faith with their local haulers. And as you can see, this created a great deal of conversation. These were screenshots of comments directly under the video that I pulled to kind of showcase what some of the conversation was talking about. So someone like Trevor, with a powerful platform and access to all kinds of resources to rely on to get the correct information, somehow he managed to get it wrong, and he caused more damage, leaving his audience confused and now wary of recycling. I don't blame them. So the thing is, if you're not talking about it, you can almost guarantee that someone else is. And I ask you, rhetorically, do you trust them to be speaking for you on topics that are so important to you, not only from a business perspective, but also from an environmental aspect? Of course we don't. So what do? Well, we talk louder than those trusted sources. And there are a few things that I want you to take away, even if you are not the person directly responsible for marketing and communication within your organization. I want you to take this kind of enthusiasm and these simple tips home, tell the right person, and help convince them that we need to be talking more often, and louder. So here's how we get started. Communication done right is done early. We get ahead of anticipated issues, and you know your audience, you know current events, you know seasonal and cyclical issues. So by knowing your audience, you're understanding their gaps in knowledge, and you're anticipating the questions, and you're putting information out there. That way they can find it when the time is right. So here's an example. This organization did some early marketing to reduce contamination and protect their employees from any potential health hazards. So they put this out right after shutdowns, and they knew they wanted to get it out there fast because they knew that this was going to be a problem. People were going to be recycling used tissues and soup cans. Have they been contaminated? Do they go in the trash? Do they go in the recycling still? They made this helpful graphic that could help people decide where things go. What else can we do? Well, we can repeat the message. Humans need several opportunities to see something before the knowledge sticks. So if you send out only one post, one message, one phone call, you're missing out on views and the opportunity to embed that knowledge in their head so that it becomes a habit. Remember, we're trying to change behaviors. So let's take another look at everyone's favorite topic, COVID-19. And this is the last time I'll bring it up, I promise. This company absolutely peppered their social media page with messaging to keep people safe, informed, entertained. They had crafts that kids could make with recyclables, things like that. So they kept repeating the message because they knew it was going to be needed multiple times. They knew people were going to be checking back to see, if there's any changes in information. So this is a great campaign that they ran. The next thing is that it is relevant. The communication has to have relevancy to your audience. It's not about your operating costs or the complexities you're facing. It's about how their behaviors will increase their costs and their impact on the environment. In the end, it's the exact same problem and the solution is the same, but making it meaningful to your customers will make it effective. I'll show you an example of this. So this is a screenshot of a video produced shortly after the news broke that our friends in Asia were no longer interested in accepting contaminated commodities and that those commodities were, in some cases, piling up in warehouses along the coast. They ended up winning an award for this video, as well as customers commenting and promising that they'll keep recycling despite the issues going on. This video gets posted every couple of months as a reminder, and they also created more videos on other topics because they found that that was a platform that really resonated with their audience. So they created videos like safety around trucks, cart care, ways to dispose of things like household hazardous waste that maybe doesn't fit in with their recycling program, so to speak, but it does help reduce contamination. So let's see the next option for you guys. You also want it to be relatable. So effective communication also takes the audience's knowledge or lack thereof into consideration and makes it easy to digest, showing them how what you do goes beyond what they see. Show them how big and complex it is, but make it simple and relatable. And I'll show you one more example that was an email blast I received from one hauler about holiday schedule changes in September. So they were talking about Christmas when I was talking about where I was going to go on vacation. They knew it was going to be a problem, and they knew that they were going to get tons of emails, phone calls, social media messages, and spend a lot of time dealing with people who were confused, concerned, so they took the time to address it before the day. So it was early, it was relevant, plus they made the schedule changes about their team getting time off. And that was the really beautiful thing that made this example stand out. It wasn't an amazing piece of design work or something very high-tech. It was the actual words they used. They made it about the team getting time off, and they minimized the disruption of service. And they weren't apologetic about it either, which makes the communication relatable because we all want to spend time with our loved ones around the holidays. So this example was not only early, it was sent out often over a period of weeks and months before the date, and it was relevant and relatable. So a great idea of something that you can do that's really low tech if you're not interested in getting into video platforms. So your next step, your takeaway for today is to take note of all of the problems you are tired of hearing about, that you're tired of talking about, tired of addressing over and over and over. So take a few minutes over the next couple of weeks and start to make note of those things. The next thing you do is identify what you can use to be talking more about this. Inventory your resources. You don't have to have a platform on every type of social media and make high budget videos or do anything that's really extensive design work. Sometimes simple is best, so use what you have now. Next, remember, it is all about the audience. You know, we don't care about your expenses or your time or the regulations that you have to go through or accommodate. We only care about how it affects us. So show how a small change in their behavior will have a direct impact on them or their environmental footprint or how much they spend on services. And remember, you can never be too early or too often. Sometimes it feels like you might be repeating yourself a lot. You have a lot of opportunities to get the message across before your audience has had enough. And when they do, they'll tell you. So vary things a little bit each time, but keep talking about these problems until people start to improve, and then reinforce that change in behavior. Make it known that you're happy that you're seeing these positive changes. So here's your list. Here's your to-do list from today about identifying, communicating early and often, making it relevant, and repeating it. It is this simple, I promise. Use your marketing to inform, to educate, to improve. Make it a conversation between you and your audience. You're going to reduce your costs, position your brand or organization as the authority on waste and recycling, which makes your service even more valuable to the locations that you have contracts with. And they'll trust you instead of talk show hosts, which is, I think, probably the most important takeaway of this. So if any of you would like to talk more about this, this is where you can find me, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. I love to talk about marketing and waste and the things that we can do to bring issues and current events to people's hearts and minds. So I'm going to pass it.
Jessica. Yeah, thank you. You can pass it over to Linnea. And I have to say that the information about Trevor Noah, that was, you know, it was funny and interesting, and then a bit quite disheartening.
Yes.
It's amazing how
I was so thrilled.
You know,
I'm like, this is our moment. And then
yes.
tanked.
I went through the same process. I was so excited, and then
it was such a roller coaster.
Quite bummed. Yeah. So yeah, very interesting, and an interesting effect that well-known folks have on little things like this. So thanks
and
for
he has
sharing.
No idea.
Good. Yeah,
we
need to send him this webinar so he'll know.
Oh my gosh, he'll be like, I hate Jessica Shrout.
Don't worry, we have your back, so no worries on that.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for presenting that, Jessica. We'll head over to Linnea. Linnea has been an advocate for the environment from an early age. After establishing a local recycling program, she went on to UC Davis, where she studied environmental science and interned in waste reduction and food recovery. She is an advocate for innovative educational tools and has developed a farm-to-school and sustainability curriculum for the Tahoe Food Hub and the Tahoe Truckee School District. She has given backyard composting presentations and workshops for all ages. Linnea lives in Klamath, Siskiyou, Foothills, and Mount Shasta, developing new business and outreach strategies and content for Recyclist. Thanks for joining us, Linnea.
Thank you, Kimberly, for that introduction. Again, my name is Linnea, and I'm the Business Development Manager for Recyclist. Emily, my colleague, went earlier, and she gave you a little bit more of a background on Recyclist, so I'll kind of skip over some of that. But she mostly covered the commercial outreach and tracking of that, and I will be covering what Recyclist does for residential outreach and how we help our customers reach their communities the best that they can. So the premise of my presentation is really to show you some of the data that we've collected over the past couple of years from our customers that are spread out all throughout California. We have customers in northern, southern, rural, urban, suburban, like all of the above locations. So this aggregated data is really, really interesting because it reflects the trends that are happening all throughout California and what people want to see. This is an example of what our recycling guides and public education websites actually look like on tablet, desktop, and mobile phone. We make sure that our products are accessible across all devices, and I'll get to a little bit more on why that's so important with some statistics in a minute. Here's an example of one of our customers. Thank you, Cecilia. This is sanjoserecycles.org, which we put up last year with the help of their team as well. If you notice, the left-hand side is what a desktop computer view of the website looks like, and the right-hand side is what it looks like on a mobile phone. And I'd like you to note that the mobile phone version looks a lot like an app, but really it's just accessing the website on any browser on a mobile phone. So we design our websites to be equally accessible, and that helps you put more information out there with less effort to get to a broader audience. So some information specifically on that. So this is a pie chart drawn from just Q1, January through April of 2020, from all of our customers aggregated. So you can see that mobile is green and desktop is blue. Tablet, the little sliver up there, is almost negligible. But the good news is for tablet users, whatever you do to make sure somebody can see the information on a mobile phone, it'll also apply to them. But it's really, really important to note that since both mobile and desktop users are almost equal on here, that you need to be able to cater your outreach to reach both of those categories if you're doing digital outreach. And this chart is always, or is also Q1 2020 information pulled. And this is just showing how visitors actually get to the website to begin with. So organic search is any kind of web search, whether that's Google, Yahoo, Bing, any of those. Referral refers to somebody clicking a link to your recycling website from another source. And direct is somebody typing in the website into their search bar to be able to access the information directly. And social is actually really, really low for our customers, even though most of our customers are good about posting on social. That doesn't mean it's not worth putting time into, it just isn't the main way to get people to your recycling guide or municipal website. So if organic search is the #1 way people get to our public education websites and recycling guides, that means doing whatever it takes to make sure that when someone Google searches, they are seeing your information in the top results. And to do that, you need good SEO, which is search engine optimization. That deserves its whole own presentation. So if anybody wants to learn more about that, they can reach out to me later. This is a chart off of a specific customer that we've had for a long time, over 3 years. So when we first started their public education website down in 2017, their search results weren't really great. People weren't using Google searches to get to their website, and they had to do a bunch of other methods. But over time, it grew exponentially. And this is because with good SEO, with implementing strategies to boost yourself in the search results, over time, it'll continue to increase the amount of people who are finding you with minimal effort. You're not putting anything more significant out there than what you started in the beginning. You just have to be consistent. And some of what Jessica said, like doing some of those strategies and implementing them, but using that on your digital channels will help you achieve this kind of goal. Oh, I did just receive a question that I want to address before I get too far. Back on this, how people or how residents access our online recycling guides, social refers to social media. So that's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything linking off of that. Let's see, where were we? Okay, back to this one. Yeah, so the point of all of that was doing what it takes to make sure that you appear in search results gets people to your website. And that's the only thing we can say for sure by looking at our analytics. Here are some platforms that aren't as easy to find information if you were to do a Google search. Now, there's a time and place for all of these solutions, but from our data, we don't see that recycling guides are the place to use these. So phone apps. Phone apps exclude the desktop users completely. If you Google search for a piece of information, you're not going to find a piece of information that was on an app. It just doesn't work like that. And with PDFs or static web pages, which are web pages that don't have information consistently added to them over time, you can't really get that same SEO that you can on a website where you're constantly adding new information and you're updating information on specific items and how to recycle them. So that being said, here is a list of the top 10 items that everybody in California, within our customers at least, are looking up. So this is aggregated again across northern, southern, rural, suburban, urban, and from January to March. So mattresses and box springs, #1, that was really surprising to us. It's really interesting looking at this, and it also allows our customers who get this from us on a quarterly basis to influence their programs and their communication to make changes that are relevant in their jurisdiction. It's really eye-opening to see what people are actually looking for and how they get to your website. Here's another chart of the same essence from just Q1, top disposal categories. So recycling bin, like what goes in a recycling bin is the #1 disposal category searched for, and it's not a surprise. Recycling is confusing, but e-waste is almost as high as recycling and what people are looking for what to do with. So what we can tell from this information is just like that last sheet. It helps you guide the communication to make sure that you are talking about what's relevant to your community and what's relevant to residents of California by seeing what they're searching out on the recycling websites themselves. So here's an example of how statistics and your website analytics can actually help you make changes that you weren't expecting to make. So one of the services we provide our public education website customers are collection reminders. So a resident can choose to sign up for a collection reminder on their municipality's website. It sends them an email right before they have to put their recycling bin out. We thought it was a great idea. Our customers thought it was a great idea. The people who sign up for it love them. But the reality is, when we looked at the data, less than 1 in 1,000 people actually are signing up for collection reminders out of the total unique website visitors. So for municipality one of our customers, 26,000 individual unique website visitors visited the website. It has clear spots where you can sign up for collection reminders if you want. Only 4 of those 26,000 actually signed up for it. And with the slightly larger municipality example, it's a little bit higher, but you can see that ratio is still pretty similar. But we wouldn't have known this if we weren't looking at website analytics. And as a result, like if we were to start over our program tomorrow, it probably wouldn't be something we invested a lot of time in. It's certainly a useful service for some residents, but if you are working for a municipality and you have limited time, money, or resources, what we can tell you is it might not be the thing to prioritize. It's not going to be the #1 way that you get information across to your residents. So what can you do now, especially involving getting statistics and analytics and implementing those into your program? I know it's a daunting task, but I promise you it's a little bit easier than it seems. The first thing I would say is for you to take your phone out. You can do that now. You can test it later, but search on your preferred search engine. How do I recycle, I don't know, cardboard, plastic bottles in whatever your city or county is? Does the municipality's recycling guide or the most trustworthy source pop up in the top 3 results, top 5, even the first page? If not, that probably means that even if the municipality is putting good information out there, they might not be implementing good SEO techniques and strategies. So that's a good baseline. So if you search that on your phone or your computer and see where you stand to start, then you can make changes from there. Of course, I advocate for you using some sort of data analytics platform, whether that's Google Analytics, or maybe you need to ask your IT department if they can provide you with any website traffic information. If not that, use the data that I've shared here today. It is aggregated across California, so it might still be relevant to you in some way. And then after looking at that information, change your communication to reflect what your residents are actually interested in learning more about. You can make assumptions on why they're doing it, but what we can tell you is this information is relevant, and education around like the #1 guide item, mattresses and box springs, would probably be really beneficial in almost any municipality in California. It consistently makes it onto this list of top 10s. I'm happy to share this slideshow with anybody later or provide more information or statistics if you're curious. Like Emily said in the beginning, my colleague, we at Recyclist, our primary goal is that we're a triple bottom line company, and we really want to provide all of you with the resources to do your job as efficiently as possible. And we know that we can't work directly with every single one of you. So we want to make sure that you have this information and you're able to share it and use it and continue this process of seeing what needs to be changed in your community by using digital outreach. I'll put this up for a second so you can kind of take a look at it. Again, happy to send this information to you at a later time. Here's my contact information. And with that, I'll pass it back to Kimberly. Thank you.
Linnea, thank you. And it's interesting what you were saying about the collection reminders. Seemed like it'd be a great idea and it'd be popular, and you tried it out and you didn't get the response you were looking for. I think sometimes
it's hard to justify spending a lot of time on it when we have those kinds of results.
Sure. Well, and it's one of those, I think great ideas are great, and you don't know really how they'll turn out until you try. And so putting in that time and effort to try, because if it's great, then it's wonderful. And if it's not, all right, well, you move on to something else. So yeah, always interesting to see what sticks and what doesn't.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks very much for your presentation. If you want to send it back over to me here.
Should be in your control now.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us today. I wanted to say thank you again to our 3 presenters. Really, we're able to put on and host these sorts of webinars if we have motivated folks like the presenters we had today who are willing to take the time, effort, and energy to share this information with you. So a big thanks to them. If anyone did want to get in touch with them to ask more questions, get their PowerPoint, if you didn't get their info on the webinar today, feel free to email us at SwanaGoldRush@gmail.com, and then we can send that information over to you. And with that, thanks again. We'll see you on the next webinar, which will be next month in August. You'll see the email reminders about those. And if you're not getting those email reminders, email us at SwanaGoldRush@gmail.com, and we'll get you set up with that. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Have a great rest of your week and weekend.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Thanks.